Bill Gates was sitting in his Harvard dorm room, surrounded by books, computers, and half-finished notes. To most people, leaving Harvard, the world's most prestigious university, would be madness. For parents, it was a nightmare. For professors, it was wasted potential. But for Bill Gates, it was a question of time. At Harvard, Gates wasn't failing. In fact, he was excelling. He was a math genius, one of those students who could solve a problem in minutes that took others days. But every time he solved a math equation or walked out of a lecture hall, something inside him whispered, "This is not enough. The future is happening somewhere else." That future was not in the classrooms of Harvard but in the humming sound of computers. Gates saw what almost no one else saw. Computers would not remain locked in labs or be limited to scientists. They would become personal, everyday machines. But that vision required speed, not degrees. So, when Gates dropped out in 1975, it wasn't an act of rebellion. It wasn't even about rejecting education. It was about choosing the battlefield. Harvard taught theory. Gates wanted practice. Dropping out was not a single decision, it was hundreds of small realizations piling up until the scale tipped. Each lecture he skipped to code, each late-night phone call with Paul Allen, each magazine article about new microchips pushed him closer. What people don't talk about is the fear. The silence that follows when you leave the world's safest path. Bill Gates was only 20. No guarantee, no company offices, no investors. Just an idea and a friend. After dropping out, Gates faced three haunting questions. What if computers were a fad? What if people never bought them? What if businesses never invested? What if he failed? Dropping out meant no backup. No degree to fall back on. If Microsoft failed, Gates was just another dropout. What would his parents think? His father was a successful lawyer. His mother was on boards of big companies. They believed in education. Gates had to explain that leaving Harvard wasn't rejection, it was acceleration. Those months after dropping out were not filled with glory. They were filled with self-doubt, long hours, and constant pressure to prove the decision right. Gates worked obsessively. His day started with coding, ended with coding. And in between was more coding. Friends said he would forget to eat, skip showers, and sometimes sleep in the office. The dropout choice gave him no luxury to relax. He had to run faster than anyone else because failure now had a bigger cost. Instead of chasing grades, Gates began chasing opportunities. Here are a few defining actions he took immediately after leaving Harvard. Laser focus. Gates decided he would only do one thing: software for microcomputers. No distractions. No side hustles. Just one mission. Partnership with Paul Allen. Instead of going solo, Gates leaned on teamwork. Allen brought vision, Gates brought discipline. This balance made their ideas stronger. Early hustling. When Gates and Allen first pitched software to MIT's, makers of Altair 8800, they didn't even have the program ready. They bluffed, worked day and night, and delivered just in time. That boldness was born from dropping out, because when you burn bridges, you run faster. Reinvesting every dollar, Gates wasn't chasing luxury. Every single dollar went back into growing their tiny company. Rent, food, comfort, all secondary. Learning outside the classroom. Harvard could teach him theory. Real life taught him negotiation, partnerships, sales, hiring, and leadership. These were lessons no professor could give. Dropping out gave Gates three superpowers. Urgency. He worked like time was running out, because it was. Independence. No teacher, no boss. Only his judgment mattered. That built confidence. risk appetite. With no fallback plan, he learned to take risks smarter, calculate outcomes, and trust bold decisions. Every great milestone in Microsoft, the IBM deal, the creation of Windows, the licensing model, came from that same mindset. Gates wasn't afraid to gamble because he had already gambled his future by leaving Harvard. Bill Gates never romanticized dropping out. He never advised students to blindly leave school. In fact, he often said, "I don't recommend anyone to drop out. It just happened to work for me." So, what's the real takeaway? Success is not about leaving school, it's about finding your obsession. Education gives you knowledge, but passion gives you direction. Dropping out forced Gates to create his own curriculum. His subjects were coding, business, negotiation, vision. His exams were real-world deals. His grades were survival. Sometimes, to build something extraordinary, you must step off the traditional path and build your own road. For Bill Gates, the Harvard Dropout label wasn't the end of education. It was the beginning of self-education. And that's why the story of his dropout isn't about quitting. It's about choosing a bigger classroom, the world.